module now. Right. Okay. Okay, so the second module we have is Azure virtual machines, right? Let's start creating a virtual machine then. Okay, so again, on the left hand side, either you can find the virtual machine section here, or you can go to all services. In the all services, we have the compute section, and you will find virtual machines here itself. Let's click on it. Okay, let's click on add virtual machine. Right, so you can click on add, or you can go to create a resource also when you want to create a new virtual machine. Okay, now let's just focus a little bit here. So the first thing you have to do is choose the subscription under which you want to create this resource. Again, I'll talk about a bit more about subscriptions in one of the coming modules. For now, let's choose a subscription, and we will also choose a group. So I'm choosing the resource group which I created in morning, AZ-103 RG. Let's create a virtual machine. Let's create VM1. Okay. We'll have to choose a region. I'll go with East US, right? Then come availability options. Okay. So the Microsoft provides us a few high availability options, right? So availability, okay, spellings, availability sets. Now, first option we have is availability sets. So Microsoft says that if you want to make your virtual machine highly available, you can configure availability sets for your virtual machine. In availability set, we have to define two things. We have to define the fault domains, right? And we have to define the update domains. Now, fault domain here is like a rack. Right? It's a rack which has its own power supply, and it might have a top of the rack switch, right? Basically it will have dedicated network connection, and an update domain is a specific Hyper-V host or server, right? For those who don't know what is Hyper-V, Hyper-V is the virtualization technology of Microsoft, right? Just like you have ESXi in VMware, just like that, we have Hyper-V in Microsoft. So in the background, whatever virtual machines we are deploying, they are going to a particular Hyper-V host. And they're getting deployed on a particular host server or a Hyper-V host. So when I say availability sets, Microsoft, okay, first of all, Microsoft will ask me that in how many fault domains you want to distribute your virtual machine. Now, a rack is just, you can say, a steel framework. Right? It has nothing to do with the the deployment or something. A rack simply contains, a rack is just a space for keeping your servers, right? Or for keeping your update domains. Okay, let's see a diagram here. Right? So your fault domains are kind of racks, And inside the racks, you have your update domains. Our update domains are Hyper-V servers. Now, when I select the availability set option, as I don't have any existing availability set, so I'll click on create new. Microsoft will ask me that how many fault domains and how many update domains do I need. So by default, Microsoft or Azure will choose 2 fault domains. Right? Maximum you can have is 3 and minimum 2 are there. Maximum 3 and 2 is the minimum. Now, 2 fault domains means in 2 different racks, I will have 5 Hyper-V hosts on which my virtual machine can run. Now, how many maximum update domains can you have? You can have maximum of 20 update domains. Right? By default, there are 5 update domains and maximum which you can have is 20. Now, 5 update domains means that there will be 5 Hyper-V servers which will be distributed across these 2 racks. So maybe you can say like 2 update domains will be on this fault domain and 3 update domains will be on this fault domain. Let's say if your virtual machine is running on one of the update domain in this fault domain, even if the entire fault domain crashes, your virtual machine will automatically start running on this update domain in this fault domain, right? So now everything is clustered in the background, right? We will not observe that there is a downtime or something, but Microsoft will make sure that even if your one update domain is crashing or if one fault domain is crashing, you still have your virtual machine running in another update domain or a fault domain, right? And they will make sure that only one update domain is rebooted at one time so that your virtual machine stays online, right? Update domain lets Azure perform incremental or rolling upgrades across a deployment, and during planned maintenance, they will only restart or reboot one update domain at a time. And as I said, every fault domain has its own set of hardware switches that share a single point of failure. That's why we need to have at least 2 fault domains. So here we can click on the default selection. Okay. Right. Now, what if the entire data center fails? What will you do then? So Microsoft has another option which is called availability zones. So what Microsoft has done that they have deployed 2 to 3 facilities. When I say facilities, so maybe I'm saying individual data centers. 2 to 3 facilities in a single Azure region, right? Let's see here. See one diagram. Okay. So these are all the regions, right? Every region is like one. It could be one or could be more than one data center. Now, when I say availability zone, so this is the meaning. For example, sorry. Okay. So if this is region 1, like this is your South India and this is your West India. So your South India, the single region will have 3 different availability zones. Now these 3 different availability zones means that you have 3 separate facilities and every facility is at a distance from each, at least 5 to 20 miles of distance from each other, so that if there is a particular area outage, you will still have your services running in another availability zone, which is still online. So for now, the maximum availability zones which we have in a particular region are 3. Now it is possible that not every region has availability zone feature, right? It is possible. For example, in India, up till now, we do not have even a single availability zone. If you will observe here, this white dot is representing the availability zone. And if you will observe all the regions in India region right now, there is not even a single availability zone. Although in Mumbai region, that is your West India, they might be coming up with it, but it is not yet there. So, and you can observe there are many very few regions are there which have availability zones. Means they have 2 to 3 facilities in their single region. So that's a high availability feature which we can use. So you can either go with availability set. Availability set will provide you fault tolerance in a single data center. For a few servers within a single data center. But if you don't want to go with it, if you want to have a bit more high availability, then you can go with availability zone, right? And you can select in which availability zone you want to deploy your virtual machine. Right? Then there's a new option. It's still in preview, like not there yet for everyone to use in production line. Right? We'll discuss about virtual machine scale set, right, in next few minutes. Right, so I'm just leaving it for now, and we'll just move on with availability sets for now. Now, after defining the high availability option, we will define what kind of image you want to use for your virtual machine. Right? It could be public or private images. Public images is which are published by hundreds of vendors all around the globe. Here you can observe you have every kind of operating system, be it Windows or Linux, with some third-party tools also. For example, you have Barracuda, or you have Citrix, and you have Oracle databases, Linux distributions, SQL servers, Red Hat. So you can search. I'm sure you will find something you need, or if not, you can deploy it on your own as well. And I'll go with the simple Windows Server 2019 data center for now. Right. Uh, we don't want spot instances now. So spot instances are temporary instances, right? If there are some virtual machines there which are not used by anyone else, so Azure can deploy your service on that virtual machine, right? But why I said temporary, because Azure will take it from you as soon as the owner will request for it, and they will just give you 2 minutes of only a few minutes for before taking your virtual machine and for switching it off. So there might be very specific scenarios where you might need this, right? Otherwise, definitely ignore it for any kind of production environment or some critical application. Size, now, okay, size means the amount of the number of virtual CPUs, the amount of RAM, total number of data disks, maximum IOPS, inputs and outputs per second, temporary storage, and whether premium disks or SSDs are supported or not. And you can see the per month cost. So how many virtual CPUs do you want your virtual machine to have, or how much RAM do you need? Now you will have to select from these given options only. There is no way that you can create a customized size. Also, you can choose the family. You want to go with general purpose family, or you want maybe the application which you want to run is compute optimized or high performance compute, memory optimized, storage optimized, right? Or you need a specific graphics card, graphical processing unit. So you'll have those kinds of virtual machines, and you can select whichever you want, right? It is possible that some services might not be available with our Azure Pass sponsorship, plus the location which you have selected. So whatever options we can see here are according to your subscription, the region you are creating the virtual machine in, and this is the current size which I have selected here.
Shavi, just one question. The
Yeah.
Azure Pass validation starts from today, or it will start from the day when we redeem that?
Whether day we redeem that. 30
Oh,
days will start when you will redeem it.
okay.
Yes. Let's click on start. Oh, sorry. Let's click on select. And now, then we'll create an administrator account. This administrator account is created inside the virtual machine. Uh, and the account will be granted privileges, administrative privileges to this user account. And do not use the word administrator or administrators here, right? Not accept. Then inbound port rules. Now we will be connecting to this virtual machine using RDP 3389, right? So it's very important that you enable this port number in protocol here. Plus, if you want to allow any other protocol, HTTP, HTTPS. If it's a Linux machine, definitely enable SSH port number 22 to connect to the Linux VM. Uh, then there is a money saving option where Microsoft says if you already have bought server licenses from Microsoft, you can use the same license to license your Azure VM. And they will reduce the cost by sorry 49%. Okay, let's click on no for now and next.
Shavi, there's port options, like let's say if we want to connect the machine via remote, so that's why we are using,
Mm,
right?
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Only if you want to do RDP and HTTP, only then you enable it. Okay, let's click on next. Now, what kind of operating system disk do you want? So do you want premium solid state drives or standard hard disk drives? You can select those. Although if your VM size supports, VM size means this one. If this size supports premium hard disks, so by default, it will show you premium SSDs only. And if you want now this VM size does not support this ultra disk compatibility. Ultra disk is a very high size, I think a few terabytes of disk, around 16 terabyte or more. So we can choose this. By default, there is no data disk associated with your virtual machine, but if you want, we can create and attach a disk. You can decide what size you want. Do you want it to be premium SSD or do you want it to be normal hard disk drive, right? Like I want standard SSDs, or the IOPS and throughput will be I can say change, which will happen. So let's say I just want a 256 GB hard disk, data disk to attach, right? Uh, scroll down. And then there's the option advanced. So it says use managed disk. Right now, Azure supports two types of disks. Right, the two types of disks are called uh, unmanaged disks, and there is a managed disks. Right, the unmanaged disks which we have needs a storage account to store the virtual machine, virtual hard disk, right? In case of managed hard disk, the VHD is managed and stored by Microsoft, right? Now, so it's up to you which option do you want. In case of unmanaged, I said we need a storage account. It means when you will select no for the managed disk, so they will ask you to choose a storage account. But this is Microsoft's recommendation that you go for the managed disk, right? They provide higher IOPS, higher performance, and more storage to the managed disk than the unmanaged disks, right? They are spread across fault domains to protect against single point of failure. And if you are using availability zones also, so they provide 99.99% of SLA. Right? So you can go for managed disk. That's a more, you can say, better option and the best recommendation from Microsoft. Also, okay, since I changed the option, my disk is removed. I can attach it again. Okay. Right, that was your operating system disk and extra data disk of 256 GB. Let's click on next. That's a networking section. So every virtual machine will be receiving a private IP, right? The private IP can be redeemed using, will be received using the virtual network in Azure, right? Just like if you remember, I created a virtual network in morning also using the PowerShell template, the JSON template, sorry. Subnet 1 address range 10.1.1.0/24. Now, I'm assuming here that people know about the private IP ranges and what does these ranges means when I'm writing them here. Right? And if someone does not know, so maybe if we'll have time later on, I'll try to explain you that. Let's click on OK. So my virtual machine will be receiving IP from this particular subnet 1, which is part of this bigger virtual network. Now, by default, my virtual machine will be receiving a public IP. Since using public IP only, I will connect to my virtual machine. Okay. If you want, you can remove that. You can click on none and there will be no public IP. Network security group, NIC network security group. So network security group is just a collection of inbound and outbound firewall rules where we enable or disable port numbers or protocols. So if you remember in the first step, I enabled port number 80 and RDP, 80 and 3389, right? So the same rules will be enabled on the network security group, which is ultimately attached to the NIC, the network interface card of the virtual machine. And I'm not choosing exterior networking, which is just low latency and higher throughput. And we cannot select it on this particular VM size, right? So many things will be based on what kind of size you select, what kind of features you will get. Load balancing, do you want to place this virtual machine behind a load balancer? So if you want, we can do that, right? For now, let's click on no, and I'll talk about load balancing in one of the modules. Okay, that was about networking. Next, management options. So if you want to keep boot diagnostics information and operating system guest diagnostics information, so we can switch both of these options, and the diagnostics information or the logs will be kept in the storage account. I can either they will create this new storage account, or I can use a storage account which got created in the morning when I was creating the cloud shell. Remember, see, the name is also there, cloud shell storage, right? Or we can create a new one, no problem. Then do we want this virtual machine to be given particular Azure AD identity? Then do you want to log in into this virtual machine using Azure Active Directory credentials? Yes or no? Again, this is a new feature. It's still in preview. Auto shutdown. Do you want to automatically shut down your virtual machine at a particular time? Now, since we are doing it for testing purpose, right? So maybe if you want, we can do that. Automatically shut it down at 7 p.m. if I forget to do it. And we want to enable backup. Right? We'll talk about backup in detail. We can enable it right now or later on. Okay. Next, advanced. If you want to install any third-party services or any particular extensions inside the virtual machine, for example, you want to run a script, a PowerShell script inside the virtual machine, or you want to install any anti-malware services, any diagnostics, any chef or puppet agent. Right? So we can install these from here on itself. And again, that's a choice. Uh, we don't have a Linux VM right now. Otherwise, you can run cloud in it. Uh, So to run any kind of commands within the Linux virtual machine when it boots for the first time, so you can use this to install any kind of packages or write files or to configure users and security. Now, host. So Microsoft says that it is possible that your virtual machine can be kept on the same Hyper-V host where my virtual machine is kept, right? Or it is possible that your virtual machine is kept on any Hyper-V host, and doesn't matter, it might be 100 other users whose virtual machine is kept on the same host as yours, right? But maybe your compliance and your security guidelines state that you need to have a dedicated Hyper-V host. Doesn't matter it is in Azure or in your on-premises. Your VMs should be on a dedicated host. So you can ask Microsoft to do that. So you will be given dedicated host where a physical server in Azure's data center where all your virtual machines will be kept. So you can create a host group and choose it here. And then they have proximity placement groups. So you want to how physically closer you want to place your resources in the same region. Again, you'll have to create a group for that. Then VM generation. Okay, so if anyone working on Hyper-V, in Hyper-V, we have two kinds of virtual machines. We have generation 1 and generation. Generation 1 virtual machine supports BIOS, right? Basic input output system. That's the legacy one, which we all might know. The latest one which we have is UEFI, a Unified Extensible Firmware Interface, right? Which supports secure boot and many other features are there. So generation 2 VMs are UEFI, and this is not again a very old feature, just came a few months ago only. But again, you can say it does not support many features like disk encryption. So, okay. Next, tags, okay, so tags are just again for testing purpose. Sorry, not testing purpose, classifying your resources, right? For example, I want to classify this resource as that it belongs to the testing environment, plus operating system is not Linux, it is Windows. Right? So all the resources related to this virtual machine, like the availability set or the network interface or the public IP, will also be tagged with the same tags. So it will be easy for you to find a particular resource if you want to when you search the tag or something. Let's click on next. So that is your per hour cost. Although virtual machines will be charged per second, right? So this is just an estimate cost. And review your selections and click on create. Okay, so I hope this was clear, and this deployment is going to take a few minutes, right? Depending on your configuration, it can take around 5 to 10 minutes, right? Now here you can observe, can you see the template section on the left hand side? So you just download this, click on download, and this will download a JSON template for this virtual machine. So you can actually use this JSON template to deploy your entire infrastructure on Azure. Okay, let's keep it here.
Chavi, how we can use these templates further? How we can import them in case we
Yeah.
want to use it? Yeah.
Were you there in the first session? Hello.
Yes, yes, I was there, but how we can import to the portal, Azure portal, or
Okay, you were there. Did you saw me doing that earlier? I did that in the first
you
session.
are you do some modification the parameters.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. That's it. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's open the parameters file, and let's try to change some things in this file. Okay, open the parameters file. My location will stay same. My network interface name will have to change. So I'll keep the name HCL VM. Wait, let's give it NIC2. My network interface name NIC2, and I will use the same network security group, or you can create a new. Let's do it. HCL VM2 NSG will be created. Then my NSG rules will stay same, right? Port number 3389 will be enabled and port number 80 will be enabled. Yeah. Sorry. Then my subnet will stay same from the same subnet which got created earlier. My virtual machine will pick up another IP. Virtual network will stay same. IP addresses will, the prefixes will stay same. Public IP address name, I can give this IP2, right, for the new VM. Public address type, dynamic, basic. Name of the virtual machine, let it be HCL VM2 this time. My virtual machine resource group will stay same. Operating system disk type, virtual machine size will stay same. Admin username will stay same, student. And we will write the password here. Okay. Diagnostics storage account can stay same. Right, everything else. I can use the same availability set for my next virtual machine also. That's it. So I have just modified few parameters in my parameter file. Let's see if this VM is not yet ready. I hope it's right. I hope I don't have to change anything in the template file. Right, nothing. You need not change anything in here. Okay. Anyways, let's come back. And now open PowerShell. Come to resource groups. HCL103 RG. Right, see my virtual machine and resources are getting almost got deployed. Click on deployments. This is still deploying. And okay, which subscription was this? Okay. Let's new hyphen. Let's use the command new hyphen AZ resource group deployment. Name of my deployment is deploy VM2. You can give any random name. Just be sure that name should not coincide. Okay, my first virtual machine is created, as you can observe here. Okay, deployment name should be different every time. So I'm giving deploy VM2. Resource group name. What was my resource group? CL103RG. HCL103RG. My template file is template.json and my parameter file is parameters.json. And oh, I have not provided location. Okay, let's see. So you can see in the GUI, it says that my deployment has started deploying, hopefully. Come back to overview. My first virtual machine is created. You can click on it and see whether it's going all right. So I should be able to see these two news resources, one network security group and one a second public IP for the VM2, right? And here. Okay, till the time this is deploying, let's come to the virtual machines section. And let's click on HCL VM1. Right, you will observe my virtual machine has a public IP and it has a private IP also. The private IP is given from that virtual network which we defined while creating the VM, and automatically a public IP is there. Now you can see the connect option. Click on connect and we'll use a public IP. Download the RDP file. Also, you can download the RDP file from here also, or you can directly open remote desktop and let's copy the public IP. At port number 3389. Right now, if you remember, I typed in the username and password. Right. That is our first virtual machine. Right. That's HCL VM1, and it is not. Sorry. So I'm in HCL VM1 logged in as a student, and I can observe my IP address given from the virtual network. Disks here. Okay. Disk again got disconnected. Every machine will have a temporary storage attached to it, right? You will have to make sure that you do not save any kind of data in this temporary storage, right? You can say the name is also temporary storage, and there is data loss warning document also. So Microsoft uses this disk only for paging purpose. So you are requested not to store anything. If you want to store anything, you attach a data disk and then you do store whatever you want to store on that disk. That's it. That's your first virtual machine. And let's see whether the second virtual machine is done or not. Still deploying. Okay, the first VM also took around 6 minutes, 58 seconds. Let's see how much time is this gonna take.
Chavi, if we retain this virtual machine, will there be any cost associated to this? Also, Microsoft charging something, or it will be?
Okay, I didn't got your word. If we retain, what did you ask me?
Let's say if we do not delete this virtual machine for a week or 10 days, so what will
Of
happen?
course, you will be charged. Why will Microsoft not charge you when you have used its resources and whether you are using it or not using it? Hmm? Okay, now what is the state of your virtual machine when you have kept it like that? Is it stopped? Is it running? Is it using the virtual CPU and RAM of Microsoft? No, it will depend that what is the state of your virtual machine. Based on that, you will be charged. If your virtual machine is in a stopped state, so it might not charge you for the compute like the virtual CPU and RAM, right? But if your virtual machine is in a running state, you're definitely getting charged for the compute also. Even if it is in a stopped state, you are still getting charged for the storage. See, it is possible that before turning off the VM, you have installed some kind of raw feature or service or software in that machine. You would not want to lose that after you switch on your virtual machine after 10 days, right? You would want that to be still there. So, for that purpose, you will be charged for the storage until and unless you delete the virtual hard disk of the virtual machine if you don't need that. Okay, this is taking longer time.
And Chavi, in that newly created virtual machine, we also added one disk, data disk, right?
Yeah, I'm not able to find
But
that.
I'm not able
Yeah,
to see that item.
yeah, actually, I'm also not able to see that. Wait, let's see. Let's come to the virtual machine. Uh, VM1, and I think somehow it got disconnected. I don't remember. Let's come to disks and try to add it again. Let's click on add data disk and create disk. Let's give it a name again, disk 1, same resource group location, source, it will be empty, 56 GB. So you can attach a disk later on also. I think, I think Okay. My second virtual machine is created. As you can see it on my PowerShell also, that the deployment was succeeded, right? And let's see it here. Okay, my disk also got created, and I have to save this, right? When you attach a new disk, remember to save this. So you can attach virtual hard disk to your virtual machine, even if your virtual machine is in a running state. Okay, now I have it. I think last time somehow got disconnected. Now we have it. Okay. I can just use it just like you do it in your on premises. All right. And we have the second virtual machine also ready. And you will observe I connected my second virtual machine also to the same virtual network and same subnet. We can observe that here also. Oh, sorry, in virtual network section, we have, okay, why to create it? HCL VNet. Okay, this one I created using, yeah, right, HCL VNet. And you can observe that in this particular virtual network, I have two network interfaces. One, your ISO VM1, right? .4 is VM1 and NIC2 is, sorry, .5 is VM2. And now I can access the second virtual machine from within the first virtual machine, since they both are part of the same virtual network. In the background, Microsoft must have connected both of them. So let's just connect it from within the first virtual machine. 10.1.1.5. No need of public IP here. Same username and password. So we are in a virtual machine inside a virtual machine. Right. That's a second virtual machine. All right. Anything, anything anyone wants to ask here? Anything, want to see something? You can install whatever you want to install inside the virtual machine. Any software, any application, anything. And that's it. Right, that was your virtual machine. Now, from within the Azure portal, you can observe various things like you have the networking section where you can observe the virtual network interface connected to this virtual machine, the virtual network from which it is getting the IP address, public IP, private IP, and also you can see the network security group where we defined the port numbers, rules, right? Inbound and outbound both. Right, we'll talk in detail about these rules, right? So, and you have the disk section. You can add not as many disks as you can, but the number of disks which your current size allows. How many virtual disks does your current size allows? My current size is D standard DS-102. So it allows me 4 data disks, right? This particular configuration. So if you want to have more than that, you might need to change the size of the virtual machine. Okay. And let's see what else we have. Okay. Another concept here we will be talking about virtual machine scale set. Right now, virtual machine scale set is supports auto scaling. Right, it means that depending on the load of virtual machine, we can increase the instances of VM, increase or decrease the instances, increase or decrease the instances of a VM. Now, a scale set in Azure has a load balancer. Now there are two types of load balancers, so it can be either of the any one of the two balancers in Azure, right? Scale set has a load balancer attached, which acts as a front end to the VM scale set, okay? And the virtual machines in scale set acts as backend, right? Okay, this is yet another service in Azure. This service, virtual machine scale set, is not at all related to these two virtual machines which I have created right now. Here, while creating these two virtual machines, I nowhere specified any kind of load balancer or any kind of auto scaling condition or something, right? But let's say you have an application which needs load balancing, right? So maybe you have a web server running, or could be a SQL database, could be a SQL server which needs load balancing in any kind of scenario. So we can use that other service in Azure. So again, in the compute section, you can observe virtual machine scale sets. And again, I'm saying this, that scale set instances, scale set virtual machines are nowhere related to the other two virtual machines which I created. Now let's click on add here. And we'll see how to create a scale set. Okay, let's give it a name, scale set 1. And again, you can choose the image which you want to deploy. Again, you can deploy any service, right? All those third-party applications can also be installed in case you want to configure any kind of load balancing. So I'll go with the basic data center image, subscription, and I'll go with my existing resource group. You can create a new resource group if you want. If you want to choose availability zone, right, you can choose availability zone and same username and password. So how many instances of your virtual machine do you need? By default, I need 2 instances, means there will be 2 virtual machines. Instance size, by default, it's one virtual CPU and 3.5 GB of RAM. Do you want to deploy it as a low priority VM or use managed disk? Yes. And okay, do you want to auto scale this virtual machine? Yes, I want to auto scale. What will be the minimum number of virtual machines in this scale set? Let's say has to be at least 2, maximum at least 10, maximum 10. Now, what is the condition here of scale out or scale in? So the condition says that if the CPU threshold of the scale set goes beyond 75%, so increase the number of virtual machines by 1. Or if the CPU threshold decreases is 25%, then decrease the number of virtual machine by 1. Now, right now, if you can observe, I can only create this single rule, the CPU rule, right? Once my scale set will be created, I will be able to create more rules also. So for now, leave it like this. And as I said, we can connect 2 different types of load balancers. So the first type we have is an application gateway, which is a layer 7 load balancer, right? This is application gateway, which is a layer 7 load balancer. Layer 7 is your application layer of the OSI model, right? And the another is the normal Azure load balancer, which is a layer 4. Layer 4 is your transport layer. Now, the layer 4 load balancer works on TCP, UDP, and port numbers. It does not know what is there inside the packet which it is receiving or sending. But a layer 7 load balancer definitely knows that what is there inside the packet. It knows what protocol is there. It knows what is the URL path which it is trying to load balance or send or receive. So of course, layer 7 load balancer will have much more options and configurations than layer 4 load balancer. Right? So you can use that one if you want. For now, we need to already have that. I don't have it. So for now, I'll go with the layer 4 load balancer. Give it a public IP. Okay. Now, I'm giving a public IP to my load balancer. It means my virtual machines will be sitting behind the load balancer. That means that my virtual machines need not have a public IP. I will be able to access the virtual machines using the public IP of the load balancer only, or the application running inside. Okay, so public IP for load balancer, virtual network, the virtual network from which my virtual machines will receive the IP, and I'm going to use the same virtual network and same site. Now, again, my same statement. Since virtual machines are behind a load balancer, do you think that every virtual machine also needs a public IP? There is no need, right? So this will stay off. And the network security group, let's enable port number 80 and 3389 on the VMs. And if you want book diagnostics information, okay, that's it. Let's click on create for now. Okay, this is going to take a few minutes. Do you want to go for a small break, or shall we just wait?
We can take it 10 minutes break, of course.
Right, if everyone is okay with that, do you need a break?
Yes.
Right? Okay, so let this create and we'll be back in then 10-15 minutes. All right. Okay. Okay, is everyone there?
Yeah, Chavi.
Okay. Okay, so as we can see that I have a load balancer, right? In the background of a load balancer, which is called backend pools, we have the virtual machine scale set to the instances of the virtual machines. Two instances are there, and both of them have a private IP. You can also come to scale sets, and that's a scale set one. The public IP mentioned here in the scale set is actually the public IP of the load balancer. We'll click on it, it will open your PIP LB, right? So it's not the public IP given to the virtual machines, that's a public IP of the load balancer. And you can come to the instances section. You can observe that I have both the instances. Now these instances will not display you as much information as the single virtual machines were doing, right? You can observe it here. It will give you the basic diagnostics and basic metrics, nothing more than that, and networking as well. And there are two virtual machine instances. Now you can see the networking just like the virtual machine. Again, it is very limited as you can observe here. Lastly, you can see the scaling option, how you can configure scaling, right? Do you want to maintain a fixed instances or do you want to customize the scaling? How do you want to scale? So if you remember, the default condition was if the CPU percentage is greater than 75%, so the number of virtual machines will be increased by 1. And if it's less than 25, decrease the count by 1. And define the maximum, minimum, and default. And if you want, I can add custom rules, more rules here. You click on add a rule, you choose the metric based on which you want to configure the increase or decrease in number of virtual machines. The metrics remain same for all the virtual machines, right? CPU, data disk, network, in and out. Right. You can create the rule and then you can configure how many instances you want. And how do we make sure that we can access the application using load balancer? So I will talk about load balancers in detail, right? I'll do that in the module of the load balancer. For now, I have rules here to connect to the virtual machine. I'll use the public IP of the load balancer. That is the public IP of my load balancer. Oh, sorry. Right, I'll connect to the first instance using port number 5000. There's a rule created here. It's a NAT rule. I'll explain you the NAT rule later on. For now, let's see that we can connect to the virtual machine. If anyone has any question, you can ask. Okay, that's my first virtual machine. Okay. I can connect to the second virtual machine from within, or let's do it from outside only. Before that, add IIS here. Okay. So I connected to the first instance using the public IP of the load balancer at port number 50,000. I will do the same for the second instance, but at port number 50,003, I guess it was 50,003. Mm. Okay, take a minute. So load balancer. Since copy the public IP. Access the first one. Let this complete. Okay. So I have installed IIS on both my two instances in the background, which are behind the load balancer. This is the public IP of my load balancer, right? And you can just access the web pages on both the servers using the same public IP. Basically, you just want to establish that load balancing is happening. And if you want to do this, that you have the same application on two different servers, you can configure a scale set. And in a scenario where your load will increase, let's say in some kind of festival time, or whenever you know at what time of the year the load increases, so you can configure auto scale. Okay. I just request each one of you, if you want to try, you can see the public IP on the screen. Just try to access the public IP and see what web page are you getting, because I'm just getting a single web page here.
Only single page is coming.
Single page is coming. Okay, let's see.
But when we click the icon, it will enter into another Microsoft homepage.
It's coming, right? This web
Yeah,
page
yeah.
from the second, it is coming,
IIS.
right? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's all we need to see, right? I
Yep.
have made a modification in one, but not made modifications on the other web page. Okay, let's see if this is working or not. Hmm. Could be some problem with the another server, although it is showing the page sometimes. It is showing, right? Okay, working. Anyways, I hope you're clear with the concept, what we are trying to do here. Right? So that's it. Sorry. That was your virtual machine skill set and a bit of load balancer, but I will talk more about load balancer in one of the coming modules. Let's see if we have something else. If anyone has any doubts, any queries, you are free to ask. Okay. So, Azure virtual machines, right? So, virtual machines comes under the IaaS, right? That's our infrastructure as a service where we can host websites or do any kind of testing, anything, whatever we want to do. So you'll have to plan everything before creating the virtual machine. You have to plan the network. You have to plan the range of IP addresses which you want to give to your virtual machines. Decide the name of the virtual machine, since you cannot change the name of the VM after you have created it. You cannot change the location of the virtual machine after you have created it. So just be plan this before creating the virtual machine. It is possible that the location of the virtual machine which you are choosing can have a few restrictions, right? For example, the Azure Pass subscription might not allow you to create a virtual machines in a specific region. Maybe in India region also you might not be able to create it. Even if you will be able to create it, you might not be able to choose some particular size of the virtual machines. Right? So you have to take care of that. You need to understand the pricing model for what you are getting charged, for what you are not getting charged. So if you will observe here, I have a virtual machine here, which is in a stopped deallocated state. What is the difference here? Running, stopped or deallocated. See, this virtual machine of mine does have a public IP attached, but it is only showing the object of the public IP. It is not showing the actual IP address here. So deallocated means that the resources which are allocated to this virtual machine, like the virtual CPU or the RAM or the public IP address, they have been deallocated because my virtual machine is not running right now. So if you want that you don't want to get charged for the compute when the machine is when you're not using the machine, so you better stop it from the portal itself, this stop option, right? So shutting down the virtual machine from within will not deallocate it. It will only stop the virtual machine and you will still be charged for the compute resources. But right now, even if I have deallocated it, I'm still getting charged because I still have the disk attached to the virtual machine, right? And I might have done some configurations here. So Microsoft is not deleting that or doing anything to my VM, and I'm still getting charged for that storage. And consider storage and do select an operating system, of course. Location and pricing, again, each region can have a different amount, a different price of storage. Price which you are getting in East US might be very, very different from the price which you get in South India or somewhere in Europe. Right? And each region has different hardware and service capabilities. Again, if you are able to create a particular kind of virtual machine in a particular region, it might not be so in another region. Like if you can observe this page, you will get a lot of information on this page. Okay, just observe. On the left hand side, you have the name of services, and here you can see the 3 data centers in India. That's your Pune, Central India, South India, Chennai, and West India is Mumbai. Now just observe that how many services are available in which region, and there are services which are not available in the regions. Might be services which are not available in any region. You can observe that also. So many restrictions could be there. You might have to choose a different region for the services not available in your region. Right? Not all kinds of virtual machines will be there. There will be a few restrictions. Right? Okay, so you'll have to decide these things, plan these things. Each region has different hardware and service capabilities. Locate VMs as close as possible to your users for the latency issues if you see. And of course, you'll have to ensure your compliance and any kind of legal obligations. Pricing, as I said, you are charged for the compute and storage. Right? Different families of virtual machine depends on your requirement. So if you're going for any general purpose virtual machine, maybe you can create them for testing purpose, testing and development, and any medium web servers or small medium databases. Compute optimized medium traffic web servers, network appliances, application servers, memory optimized use databases, storage for running, again, ideal for running databases. That's L series virtual machine. GPU for ideal for model training and interfering with deep learning. And then you have high performance compute, H series with a powerful CPU virtual machines with high throughput. Right. So depending on your requirement, you can choose the size. Disk, we saw there's operating system disk, which is actually a SATA drive labeled as C. Don't use temporary disk for storing any data. And thereon, the data disk will be your SCSI drives, depending on your type of virtual machine. Storage options, we saw premium is there, SSDs, high performance SSD disk. You can use premium storage, 2 types. We saw 2 types, managed and unmanaged. And then we have long collection of operating systems. Now I hope creating virtual machine is clear. Right? We saw all the options, all the sections. Windows, or you have Linux options also. So you can connect using RDP like we did, and we also have remote management. So we can also run a command line session. Creating a VM, okay, I hope this is clear now. And we can use PowerShell also for the same. Right? Now, again, the advantage of PowerShell will be reuse. You just need to change some parameters in the command, in the script, and you can reuse the script again and again to create a virtual machine. Okay. So what it is exactly doing, or I can show you the same example in PowerShell as well. Right, so again, this goes step by step, creating all the variables and adding their values. Then like connecting all the variables to each other. So if you'll observe here, it has created variables, right, for username, password, location, name of the resource group, name of virtual machine, sorry, name of computer and name of virtual machine, and the size of the VM. Again, it has created variables for the networking, like name of virtual network, name of virtual network interface, name of the subnet, then subnet prefix and virtual network prefix. So after creating the variables, they've started linking them, creating the subnet, new -AZ virtual network subnet config, creating the virtual network itself, attaching the network interface with the virtual network so that the network interface can receive a IP address, uh, combining the username and password into a single object, and then finally started configuring the virtual machine, connecting the virtual machine name and size, specifying the operating system of the virtual machine, attaching the virtual network interface to the virtual machine, and then again specifying the source image. And finally, they use new -AZ VM to connect everything and create a virtual machine. This is how you have to go on and create a script. Right now, this is a normal one-time command. Right, what you can do is you can create a proper PowerShell script with some parameters. So, like it will be fully automated, right? So that every time you run it, it will ask you. Um, it will ask you the questions, or it will ask you what will be the name, what will be this and that. Okay, this is the default one. We should have one more script here, I guess. Scripts, okay. File. Okay, right. So you can create something like this, fully custom, fully automated, right? To start with the logging into your Azure subscription and then entering all the variable names like the name, VM name, computer name, username, password, all the things basically. And then finally running the entire script. You can make it more automated. Let's say you might also want to configure in the script that how many virtual machines you want to create at once, and then you can run a loop of the commands depending on how many virtual machines you want to create, as many times you want to run the loop also. Okay, that is your PowerShell, and we saw it how to do it using JSON also. Similarly, you can create a Linux virtual machine. This procedure is exactly same. The only difference is how would you want to connect to the Linux machine? You want to use SSH keys, public and private keys, or you want to use username and password. So if I'm selecting a Ubuntu server here, Microsoft will give me option. You can use a password also in case someone is there who have no idea about SSH keys, public or private keys. So you can use password also. And if you have tools, so you can generate public and private key, paste the public key here, and then you'll have to provide the private key while logging in inside this virtual machine, and you connect it using SSH. And just remember, port number 22 should be enabled. Okay. VM connections. Okay, so you use SSH or password. Done with this. Availability, virtual machine. I'm hoping this is clear now. Okay. Okay. So, how Microsoft manages the downtime and maintenance. So, when platform predicts a failure, automatically it will be a unplanned hardware maintenance event, and your virtual machine will be live migrated. Live migration is again a concept of Hyper-V, where running virtual machine is transferred from one host to another host in a running state and without any downtime. Unexpected downtime, if a virtual machine fails unexpectedly, again it will automatically migrate. And planned maintenance, of course, there will be periodic updates made to the Azure platform. In planned maintenance, there will be no such migration or something. Your virtual machine will be running.
So during that time, machine will be rebooted or not?
Sorry, virtual
Machine will
machine?
be rebooted. Yeah.
No, your virtual machine won't be rebooted. Don't worry. Your virtual machine will be accessible.
But
They will
generally, you
automatically.
also show us that there are suppose there are two fault domain there, right?
Right,
Suppose one goes down. So in that case,
right.
also virtual machine won't be rebooted.
No, of course not. It will be live
Okay.
migrated.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And we saw the availability sets, I guess. One thing to observe here, you will not be able to configure availability sets if you have not done it while creating the virtual machine. You can only configure availability sets while you are creating the virtual machine. After you have created the virtual machine, you cannot specify the availability set. For example, here I did it while creating only. So you can see the fault domain and update domain. But I'll show you for this machine, which I created some time back. Here, if you will come to availability plus scaling, you can see I have not configured it here, and there will be no option to do it. So you have to plan this also before creating the virtual machine. Do you need availability sets or not? And then we did the scale set based on demand. The VMs will be added or removed. Right? You can specify how many instances you want. Define conditions for auto scaling and implement the conditions. That's it. We have extensions. We saw extensions. For example, if you want to run any custom scripts inside the virtual machine. So come to the virtual machine and sorry, extensions like automatically the diagnostics agent is installed inside the VM. Now, if you want to install anything else or you want to run a custom script inside the virtual machine from this Azure portal, then you need to specify the PowerShell script here. You click on custom script extension, you click on create, and you will need to specify a PowerShell file here, right? Uh, any PowerShell file, whichever script you want to run inside. And same goes for the another option, that is a PowerShell desired state configuration. Again, a particular PowerShell script will be required. So you can do these via extensions. Right. Custom script extensions. There's a PowerShell script.ps1. Right. The script is this, the one which I was opening using IAC. It's a PowerShell script which has extension, a file which has extension of .ps1. So you just have to connect these files and they can be installed. You can use PowerShell also. PowerShell to add a extension. Same for, okay, that's it. Okay, that finishes your second module. All right. So, tell me this, do you want to do some of your own practice